Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Fahrbach. Ceasefire talks now begin in Geneva this Tuesday, bringing Ukraine, the United States, and Russia back to the negotiating table as fighting continues across the front line. After 2 rounds of trilateral meetings in Abu Dhabi, the 3 nations are now again meeting, this time on European soil. Now, territorial control in the Donbas and the question of security guarantees are expected to dominate discussions, even as Kyiv warns of further large-scale strikes by Russia. Joining us now to discuss the latest is Lesya Orobets, former Ukrainian MP and CEO, The Price of Freedom. Good to have you here on TVP World. Welcome.
Hi, hello.
I want to start with the main, let's say, opinion of this. We've had a few trilaterals in Abu Dhabi. We've had a lot of shuttle diplomacy, summits, meetings. In your mind, is this any different now in Geneva? What will this look like after 2 days conclude?
I strongly hope that we will have at least the same success we had in Abu Dhabi, meaning last time we had 157 prisoners of war, our Ukrainians being captive in Russian prisons, being released. But so far, that was the only positive outcome of that round of negotiations. So I'm not an optimist. I do not believe that Russia has shifted their position. They haven't shown the slightest show that they are eager to end this war on any other conditions but Ukraine surrendering.
Mm-hmm. And one of the main issues remains territory, remains the Donbas. This is something that Vladimir Putin says that he wants full control over. He doesn't have that. This is something as well, obviously, a red line for many Ukrainians. How is this solved? Is there any progress on this? How can this be solved in any way?
It's not only the red line for Ukrainians, because we do know that those are the belt of fortresses and so-called immune system of our security. If we give up that piece of territory, that fortresses, we wouldn't be able to protect the whole left bank of Ukraine sooner or later. So we would endanger Kyiv and other major cities by doing that. But that is also the red line for Europe as well. And I strongly believe that what's been missing in Geneva is European politicians at the table of negotiations, because this is the red line for Europe, because if Ukraine fails and gives up, not only Russia preserves its million army with now a question where to send it. Is it Baltics? Is it Poland or any other places Russia can maneuver? Because this is a KGB trick about the territories. They do not need a territory. Last time you've checked Russian map, last thing this country needs is another slice of a territory. They are talking the world dominance, and now they are about the dominance in Europe, trying to threaten yours and our politicians with the military force. And while Ukraine is standing, we have several better options.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about what you just mentioned, the Europeans not at the table. I mean, this is something that Ukraine has consistently asked to be part of, that the Europeans are there, they're not. I mean, at the same time, Europeans are becoming more and more suppliers of defense technology, of the armaments that Ukraine needs. So why are they missing here in Geneva, in your mind?
Precisely. Europeans are right now the biggest donors and provide the biggest assistance to Ukraine while producing or financing the purchase of American weapons. So I do not have the answer to this question either. This is the Trump's administration that shaped these negotiations. And unfortunately, this year of negotiations under Trump's leadership only showed to be the bloodiest year in terms of civilian deaths for Ukrainians since 2022. And the other idea that Trump once initiated, that the ceasefire first and then the negotiations, also failed. So right now we're having the negotiations with the terror state, us civilians being kept as the hostages. Really, literally this night, there was a big, massive drone and missile attack on our, once again, energy infrastructure, or what is left of it. We're sitting without heat with the temperature minus 13 in Kyiv, and they're trying, and Russians believe that with destroying our infrastructure and putting the cold, weaponizing the cold and winter against us, they're speeding out the negotiations so we will be more in the favor. Ukrainians wouldn't become stupider or less realistic about what Russia is planning to do. They would not stop at Ukraine at no cost. So no matter what territory we give them up right now, they would just regroup, refinance, and get back with more forces, more army against us and Poland and you name other countries of the NATO bloc. So it doesn't make much sense, and I'm sure that we have to stop Russia right now, and we have to talk senses about the realistic sanctions against Russia, realistic stopping of the shadow fleet in Baltics, and stopping Russians from stealing technologies. And with this, we salute a Starlink decision to stop Russian Starlinks from functioning, which immediately led in Ukrainians regaining territories back because Russians lost their ability to use American technology for connection on the front line.
Lesya, you mentioned also energy, and especially now in this winter. I mean, generally, Ukrainians suffering under Russian attacks in particular. The energy infrastructure is reeling. I just want to ask about what President Zelensky has proposed, this energy Ramstein meeting, this format of various countries, similar to the Ramstein format, which was all about defense and different types of supplies that came and were made available to Ukraine. How do you see this playing out? Is this going to provide Ukraine with something that they don't already have? Is this going to be a faster way of procuring what they need in terms of energy supplies of any kind? What do you think of his idea of this energy Ramstein?
The idea is to win this race of us Ukrainians having enough interceptors to shoot down each and every missile targeting our infrastructure, energy and heat infrastructure. So it's another couple of weeks of a frosty weather, and if we can make it, if we can protect at least what's left, this is a game changer for us being able to prevent the humanitarian crisis. Because otherwise we are risking another wave of migration inside and outside the country, because you cannot keep your kids in the freezing apartments. You cannot send them to freezing schools whenever they don't work. So no mother would keep their kids in such conditions. And this is another way for Russia to pressure Europe with this unwilling migration because of the threat to energy and infrastructure. And this is something we were able to predict a year ago while publicizing our strategy guarantees initiative called Sky Shield, when we ask not just for enough interceptors, but also for participation of Western aviation to cover at least part of Ukraine, shooting down missiles like the ones that were flying towards our infrastructure this night. It could have saved us from this moment when Europe is not at the table, Europe is being threatened, Ukraine is being threatened, and we are trying to survive through negotiations where one part is blackmailing us with the absence of support and intelligence, and the other part is terrorizing us with constant attacks on our energy infrastructure. So I'm sure that this is the high time of us starting talking senses how to shut down the Russian war machine with sanctions, with cutting their financial supply and their ability to steal or purchase Western technologies to their benefit.
Lesya, I want to jump back to one of the topics for sure that will be discussed in Geneva as well, is the ceasefire conditions. And one of those elements includes elections. Now, President Zelensky has said that he is in some way open to that, but it is also hedged and connected with security guarantees by the United States. How does this work out realistically during wartime, a ceasefire, elections? I mean, it's a complicated, loaded combination. How do you see this play out? Will there be elections? How realistic is that? And under certain conditions, I mean, that's going to be a tough ask.
A constitution strongly forbids us to hold elections during the martial law. And there's a beautiful explanation to that, because security-wise and participation-wise, you cannot arrange true, reliable elections during such a hard time. We can invent something technically like online voting or something, but the risk for Ukraine and for our allies is that the next government would be less legitimate than the one right now, because the one right now is based on the constitution. They are legitimate, they can sign anything on behalf of Ukraine. They were voted by free elections, and I'm not sure Ukraine can and is in the position of organizing something like that right now. But if we're talking about the ceasefire and actually security is happening in the territory of Ukraine before elections, then we are talking census.
And on that as well, this is something I think President Zelensky also mentioned, proposing this ceasefire monitoring mission, essentially, of looking at where some violations could take place. I mean, how credible could this be? Who would enforce that? And we're looking at a front line of well over 1,200 kilometers. We already have seen instances where Russia has not held up their side of the bargain. How would we enforce that? What would that look like?
Unfortunately, Russia has a beautiful history of false flag operations, and this is something we're trying to prevent in this case. So definitely Western specialists being physically present in Ukraine and watching with their own arms and monitors, with their own eyes and monitors, what is actually happening would be a beautiful solution against any false flag or pretense that Ukraine, violated something or provoked something, which is the beautiful fairy tale Russians love to do. But yes, you're right. The front line is very long, 2.5 thousand kilometers, and it takes massive coordinated actions of so-called coalition of the willing, whoever they are willing to send to make sure that the peace and ceasefire stays. But right now we are solving the issue which we do not have right now on the table. We don't see any indicators that Russia is going to stop the war in the nearest future. They are preparing the so-called summer-autumn campaign right now. They are sending more troops and weapons to the front line, and they are financing their war machine as hell while pretending to negotiate. So this is the moment where we are right now, and let's solve the issues of this moment.
All right, and a lot will be discussed as these 2 days unfold in Geneva. I'm sure we'll be discussing more once they conclude. Thank you so much for all those insights. Pleasure having you here. That was our guest here, Lesya Orobets, former Ukraine MP. Thank you. And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.